and come to this fountain to do little talks for people. And as always, I'll say if you want to leave a comment, go check out the Zen 101 comments video. But hopefully this turns into a teachable moment, as they call it. This is about digestion on all levels, but mainly the food thing. I'm going to get into the meat thing again and just get into simple proofs that are really undebatable. They're just everybody, whenever I'm using these ideas, people always straw man the shit out of the argument. And it's not because it's not even an argument, it's just point of fact, it's basic things. I have friends that are almost 40 years old that have gone through being a vegetarian for a while, then getting back to meat and getting on this, well, no, we evolved through meat and meat is this. And it's, whenever I bring up a couple major points that I'm going to in this video, there's always a straw man argument, and it's so infuriating because it's coming from intelligent people whenever I have this, like seemingly intelligent people that have actually explored consciousness to a high degree but fail to see a few of the more basic understandings. And so in this, I hope that people would be here to understand and listen, because this is not about me, this is about the benefit for your life. It's not about arguing with people, because I really don't care what you have to say, because right or wrong, the proof is in the eating of the pudding. It's not in the pudding, it's in the eating of the pudding. So there's a lot of ways to prove the points I'm making, and we'll get into that in a second. But let's start with how it's easy to see digestion as the most important factor. Digestion of all material, meaning the food that we eat, the information we gather, the medias that we use, the information that we gather through our eyes and our ears and our nose. And I've done proofs on why oxygen and aromacology in the nose is the gateway to all of life, but I don't want to go that far. I'll make these proofs about why liquiditarian or juice and what liquid is. I'll just start with liquid and make it easier. When you're born, you have a liquid diet that doesn't involve meat. And now, debate that. Find somebody with this wonderful, like, now they're meat eaters, we need B12, blah blah blah. Oh, okay, then you can't debate that. There's no children eating meat. Everything that's happening in the child, that's growing and it's becoming smarter, and it's facilitating all of its growth and development with the use of no meat. And most children, not until the time they're about 5 years old, will even ingest a piece of meat. And then at that point, it's probably cooked. Now, what is it? Why is it people can survive and function on meat? And why is it? What's changing here? Like, okay, so can anybody argue that? No, that you can't argue that statement, because it's just a plain fact that a baby does not consume meat. And it's a plain fact that they're not eating bread. It's a simple fact. It's not debatable. So when you look at the growth process of a child, that's all you need to know. That's all that really is required to know. That the amount of neurological pathways that are being opened up, connections are being made, the amount of growth on all parts of the body, musculature, tissues, brain capacity, the size of everything, oils, all of it. It's like all of these debates about what's needed can always be sourced through plant. There's too many cultures. And even I don't even want to get into cultures, because that's even a secondary thing. It's always look at the child and how that grows. Now, what does this mean in terms of how people can survive well off of meat? Well, uncooked meat. I mean, we're talking about. Let's look at digestion. If you eat something and then you take a shit, where was the energy? Where did the energy come from? What happened there? What was it inside of? How did it get used? What was getting used? What exactly was it? Now people can go off to their science books, and the teacher said is that here's a crazy Latin name. Here's some. I don't want to. Those are pointless, moot arguments. I'm just talking about, like, look around you and source the food, source the material. So what can we look at from the argument of meat eating? Well, it's not needed, but yes, certainly you're using the life force and the blood of an animal. And this is why people can survive and be very healthy, but then they become vampiric and they become succubuses. They're taking the life force. It's no different than eating a peach or a pear or a plum, because within that blood there's energy and life force. This is why you can do high levels of magic with blood and your other fluidiums as well. But this is not obviously to encourage meat eating, because it makes you a succubus and it brings you closer to pulling energy off of other systems rather than being a self-substantiated system. Now, walking backwards from doing dense things and taking foods out of the ground, we can take vegetation. Instead of eating the roots and having to go through the process of cooking things, we can eat the vegetation, and then we get up to the fruits. And so where's the energy there? Well, it's very obvious. I've explained this plenty of times. If you plug in a couple wires to a lemon, you can make a light go on. There's energy in there. You can't do it with salt. You can't do it with a piece of meat. So there's, and once again, getting into people's meat-eating diet, look at all of the other foods that they're eating. They claim it's the meat doing it. They're still eating vegetation. They're still eating other things. They're still consuming water. They're still consuming a myriad of other substances, but then claim the meat's doing it. For me, I just go, hey, do what you want to do. Eat meat if you want. I'm not going to go through some moral, ethical, things here, because the morals and the ethics are a slippery slope to stupidity, because there's no one set of fundamental rules, because we got to get into where we're from and what your local environment is, etc., etc., etc. There's so many things. So I don't like to take that argument on ethics and morals about eating meat, but from the stance of somebody could just say, yeah, I granted, I understand I don't eat meat. I just choose to, because I'm an unconscious person and I don't want to have to think about all the processes that went into consuming meat. Now, here's the difference. Let's upgrade this. If somebody goes, okay, I'm eating meat and I accept all of everything that's going on with the meat that I'm putting in my body, then people become more sustainable, farming, small-scale farming, eating less meat usually. Now, these are all great steps in the right direction, but the notion is that their awareness and consciousness of the digestion process, meaning, now in a physical landscape, we can look at all of the material we eat and see how quickly we can digest fruit. We digest fruit, and especially juice, very quickly. The thing that we digest faster than that, and the thing that actually is the major sustainer of life, if you can understand it, is the air that you breathe. You could call it prana, ether, oxygen. It doesn't really matter, but there's a really big thing going on there, and most people can't accept the idea of breatharian or being living off of sunlight, because with the sunlight and your body being full of water and then just breathing, there's a whole bunch of that's your initial process, and then you go on to the next things that you'd consume. You'd go on to fruits and that liquid, and then you'd get to the vegetation. And the only reason people are eating vegetation are for the fiber, to push out all of the other junk that's in their body. And this is why you even eat a next meal. The only reason you eat next is to help you force out what's already in you. Let's go a little farther in this digestion thing. If you watch a movie, you could look at it one way, and you could look at it another way. You could listen to music and hear it one way, or you could hear it another way. So your process of digesting that information in your brain and your consciousness can have two very, very different results. Now, certainly there's lower level energy systems that you can't extract too much from, in the terms of low level kinds of music, off key vibrations. Like it's harder to extract information out of there. Still obtainable, but not to a very high level, and it's not going to give the greatest degree of return of energy. So if we look at it through all of our systems of energy ingestion, we can see that that what the digestion process is doing is pulling apart the usable and the unusable. Now we can get into salts, and why salt is another claim that people are not understanding, that I've done plenty of videos on, and that salt is not a valuable resource for the human body. Its only use is when there's another electrical source that's pulsing through the body. And if you have the thing that has that energy in it, it's already coming with the salt attached to it in a living way. It becomes bonded with the carbon system that you are. That's what makes you human. That's what makes you living. It's the difference between a living and a dead system. So when we look back, let's look back again at one more, this, you know, if somebody got to this point and they still want to argue about the meat process, I don't understand. You have to answer the first two first, and then we could get on, like, but those two are so unavoidable in your consciousness that the only thing you can do is just go, no, I'm going to be so cognitively dissonant. I'm going to be so much of a replier. I just want to be right, and I don't want to learn. Like, I'm not in a position to learn this. I've already learned it. I learned it because I practice it. I know about these systems. I participate in them. And I know exactly how things respond in my body whenever I eat different substances, because my body has been cleaner than most people. And so then I can ask people, well, why is it that if you need meat so badly, why is it that the healthiest people I've ever met have done fasts? You fast on water. Why is it that then we can get into the urine thing? Oh no, you die after recycling your urine 3 times, and then they backtrack from that, and they backtrack from that. And I'm like, well, I know for certain I've gone for more than 3 days just using urine, so I've looped my urine many times. Not only did I not lose energy, I gained energy, and I was stronger for it. So even without getting into the urine, okay, I can go 40 days on water. What does that prove about the system? It once again, it proves all of the fallacy and the theory that people just latch onto and just go, no, science says so. Science, they hide behind their science god. Oh, they read it in a book, they read it in a study. Yet I can tell you 100 studies that I've read that say quite an opposite thing. So dealing with the consciousness of digestion. Someone could sit around, and this is why when you get into the really high levels of meditation, they say focus on your breath. Focus on that. Because through the breathing process, that's where you're getting all of your energy. And this would be a furthering of this analogy for people. But the process of you obtaining energy in your body is coming through breathing. Hyperventilate right now. Just start breathing very, very heavily, and you'll notice that after you start doing that, it's pressurizing your system. You're spraying blood into your lungs, and you're making an energy exchange happen, and your heart will beat faster, and you'll be able to do more. It's proof of what the system is doing, what the breathing is doing. And this goes into all of my other talks on the different types of breathing patterns and what you're getting into different brain waves and the places that can take you in the dream world, as well as like out here in the natural environment. But it still speaks to the digestion process. We talk about digestion through the air and the oxygen, breathing those things in. We're digesting through that. And then the liquid digestion. And then we think of the physical digestion. If you were to eat dry foods and no water, you're going to clog yourself up, and where's the energy coming from? You find people that are... the furthering argument that I always get off this straw man nonsense is after not answering the first 2 or 3 very obvious ones about children and how are these other cultures, and they get right into like, oh, you need protein, and then they don't even, the protein myth just has to get completely thrown away because they don't even know what protein is or where the word comes from or what it means. Like, look at a piece of meat. Once you cook it, what have you done? All of that nutrition on the label no longer exists. You've literally just burnt away whatever nutrition, meaning the blood, because the nut or the nutrition or the lux, the light in the system of that animal was stored in its blood. And this is why when you breathe, you're doing something and you're changing your blood. So energy is coming through that first, then liquid second, and then what's going on? What is the fibrous, bulky substances are only to push everything out of your body. You come down here to this realm, this space, this set of vibrational energies, and you pull yourself to a lower level of density by consuming things. And people become denser for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of fun here, a lot of interesting things to do, but then they get stuck in that, and they're thinking the proof of aging and the proof of life is through the substances outside of themselves, and that's the farthest thing from the truth. Not only is it just your consciousness and it's all going on in your brain, but if we even step away from that, it's all inside of your body and how you're breathing. And then what are you consuming next? Are these bulky substances that are only to push out all of the things that you've put in as fun, as a feast, as what most people would call sin, because it's part of the sign world, and you can say that S-I-N-E or S-I-G-N. So a sign, like a sign of nature. So this world that is a land of abundance that you can put anything you want in your system. This is why, yeah, everything's allowed here. Do what you want. But if you want to know what's healthy, healthy is removing all of the obstacles of energy flux in your body. And where does that start? Where does that come from? It comes from breathing properly. It comes from clean water. If you're brave enough, recycle yourself in your urine. That will speed up processes. And yeah, I think that's about cover it on this meat thing. Again, see if I didn't touch on anything here. That there's no the problems with here. Let me do this. Let's beer or alcohol in general, and why it's healthier than your so-called soda pops or whatever, right? It has sugar in it. The soda does. Well, that sugar, when it's processed, becomes alcohol. It's transmuted and transformed the thing that would have taken place in your body, and has now become a cleansing substance rather than because then we can get into all where the sugar came from or whatever. And I'm not saying sugar is bad, because there's quite a bit of good use for sugar. Obviously, it's, you have different, people always group it together. Fructose, sucrose, glucose, and it's just more consciousness, division, and separation. So you can't just understand the simple truths. The simple truths are: look at the tree, what's on the top, what's growing there. That's what you should be eating. And if you're smart enough, you'll just a fruit will fall to the ground for you, and there you go. There's your food. And that's even if you choose to do that. That heightens things. And if your body is clean, you'll notice that you can put one specific element or plant substance in your body, and you'll know exactly how that works. But if your body is full of everything else, you're not going to be able to digest that. This is all levels of unhealth, and health have to do with, I don't care what you eat. I don't care if you eat the healthiest diet. And I've gone into this before about people thinking they're going to fix themselves with herbs. I don't care what you consume if you can't digest it, whether it's just a conscious digestion thing or it's literally a physical conduit, like your stomach isn't going to let it happen. Your intestines won't let things pass through because you have been eating too much of this. There's all sorts of ways this happens. So we just have to look to cleaning up the internal environment to be able to process information. And maybe that's why I sit around a fountain. I think of, that's my favorite movie ever right there, The Fountain. And what you would be with energy in your spine, and why, people talk about, back to this meat thing. Oh, you need omegas from the fish, and you need this certain B whatever from meats, and It's like, no, how is it then there are all these cultures? How is it that I'm literally, I've known so many large human beings that consume a plant-based diet and drink a lot of water. Well, what are they doing? How do they get big? I've known people that have gotten bigger just by breathing correctly. Why? Because it's in the energy. You go do the work, and you'll get bigger. You'll get stronger. I don't know. That there's any value in the world to becoming bigger. But if you want to be bigger, so be it. But if you're stronger, and that you'll become. You put the work into doing push-ups and sit-ups and body weight exercises and functional movement patterns and isometrics, and you put all the work in, you'll get the results. You'll become stronger, more powerful, lean, flexible, all of these things. And one of the easiest ways to become more flexible is literally just do a fast. Start using aged urine on your skin and watch how quickly you can loosen up tendons and muscles and things. And then we can get into why that happens, and it's ammonia content in there and whatever. But suffice it to say, this is all about digestion, and how if you really want to get to a higher level of being and awareness, it's literally just cleansing out all of your tubes in your body to allow a flux of energy through it. Chat soon, y'all.